Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli back out here in the shop with another video for you today. And in today's shop, we're gonna talk about my top 4 baits for the month of May. Top 4 baits for the month of May. You know how we do these shop videos. We're gonna break it down by giving you 2 baits for May for the northern part of the country. Let's say Virginia North. And then I'm gonna give you 2 baits for the southern part of the country, south of Virginia. But let's talk about May before we get into the baits. You know, what is May? You know, May is spring or the transition of spring to summer. You know, geographically, if you talk about the month of May and you're up north, you're talking about a lot of spawning fish. You're talking about fish on beds. You're talking about fish guarding fry, right? Fish in some phase of the spawn. Even in places like upstate New York or Canada, there's even some pre-spawn fish around, right? That are near the beds. So May is another big month for spawning fish, especially up north. But if we're talking May, and we're talking May down south, we're talking about places like South Carolina and Alabama, and especially places like Louisiana or Texas or Florida, May is late spring. It's more of the transition into summer. And many of the fish in May in those southern states are done spawning. They're post-spawn, they're recouping from the spawn, and they're starting that movement toward deeper water, right? They're starting that move toward their summer areas that are going to happen in June and July. So, you know, May is a spring month, but it's also a month where they're doing a lot of different things based around the spawn. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start by giving you my top 2 favorite baits for the month of May for those northern states, right? Virginia or north. And you heard me say it. These fish are around the beds. They're either actually on the beds, right? They're spawning in protected pockets, in coves. They're spawning on shoals and flats, right? You know, these fish are actually spawning, or they're getting ready to. They're just about to spawn. They're right near those areas, or they're done, right? There are some post-spawn fish up north in the month of May. And because of that, because, you know, we got a lot of stuff going on, there's 2 baits that I consider the primo baits for the month of May. And the first one, I'm going to give you a more broad category. I usually don't do this. I usually give you one specific bait, but I'm going to give you more of a category. In the month of May, you cannot beat smaller, soft plastics. Smaller, soft plastics rigged weightless or rigged with a very light weight. Without a doubt, I'm going to show you 3 of my favorites for the month of May, especially in the top half of the country. This one, you're gonna say, I sound like a broken record, but it's gotta be. It's gotta be in here for May. And it's a stick bait. It's a soft stick bait. But because these fish are spawning and because they're guarding fry, right? There's a lot of small stuff in the water. Starting in May, you're gonna see a lot of fry starting to hatch. Because of that, I like the 4-inch soft stick bait. Berkley Powerbait General, Accent General, great baits. You've heard me say it before. The thing I like about this is you can rig it multiple ways, but a wacky rigged 4-inch stick bait in the month of May around spawning areas is killer. It's great. And here's the great thing. If you're watching this and you're saying, I hate bed fishing. I can't see them. My eyes are no good. I need readers. I need readers. That's why I have them here. If you're a guy that doesn't like actually throwing at beds and seeing them, just get in spawning areas and throw a wacky rig 4-inch little stick bait around and you're going to get bit. You'll catch them in all 3 phases of the spawn. It's a tremendous bait. I wanted to mention this one, and if you're watching this and you want more info, go back in my archives right here on my YouTube channel and look for this video, a 4-inch French fry. Just like that bait, it can be phenomenal. It's smaller. I really like to fish it weedless. I Texas rig it with a little hook. The key to a 4-inch French fry is do not overpower this bait with a hook. So a number 1 to a 1/0 regular gauge hook, Texas rigged. A lot of these French fries, this is the little Berkley power noodle or lugworm, has a flat side on the bottom. Always want to rig that down. And then the key juice, and I'll just show you by pushing it out here a second. I can't even get to it, but it's in there. We've got a little nail that I'm just gonna jam in the back. Just a real light nail. And when we do that, we fish it around those spawning areas, the bait literally glides backwards, right? So just like the 4-inch wacky, month of May, get around the spawning areas and start throwing around. The last one I want to mention, this is a forgotten about bait, but in the month of May, I throw it a lot, especially when the fish are in some phase of the spawn, is a good old lizard. Again, not the giant monster lizards. We're not talking 7, 8-inch lizard, a 4, a 5, that's a 5-inch right there. 4, 5-inch lizard, perfect. This is the Berkley Power Lizard. Green pumpkin, super, super bait in the month of May. Spawning bass will bite it. Post-spawn garden fry fish will bite it. I literally just rig it. I rig it Texas style on just a, lighter weight. This is a 2-aught, a fusion hook. One little trick I do, and I want to show you why I have this lizard here, is before I Texas rig it, I bite that head off. And I get the lizard and I literally will just bite the head of the lizard off. And then when I Texas rig it, this is a really neat little rigging trick. And it works great in a spawn. When I Texas rig it, the bullet weight becomes the head of the lizard. So it makes it a little more compact, gives it a little more realism that there's something trying to eat the eggs in the bed, whether it's a real lizard or a crawfish or a worm or a bluegill, right? It's got more of that direct pecking action. So month of May, up north, small, lightweight, or weightless plastics. All right, number 2 for the month of May, and you may have seen this. I did this as a short tip on my social media as well. It is probably, in my opinion, one of the most under-talked about, phenomenal spawning lures that people don't assume it's a great spawning lure. So month of May, sound like a broken record, fish are in the spawning areas. They're either spawning or they're getting ready to, or they're done. A frog fished around spawning areas in the month of May up north is unbelievable. A lot of people think, I gotta have heavy cover. I gotta have mats. I gotta be in the heat of the summer for those fish to hit a frog. A popping frog, a frog that you can fish slow, just fished like a topwater, is phenomenal. This is the Molix popping frog. I can keep it in place. And this is going to be hard for you to believe, but I've had days when I'm fishing around spawning areas where I can barely get them to hit that little soft plastic thrown around the beds. But if I pop this around the beds and it sits, right? Think about that. So if they're on a bed or if they're guarding fry, they've seen a lot of little 4-inch soft plastics. They've seen a lot of stick baits, and they've seen a lot of that stuff. And they've seen it here and here. But now all of a sudden they're guarding fry or they're on a bed, and this popping frog comes by and it just sits there. Great thing about this frog is I'll pop it and I'll pause it. And when you pause it, unlike a lot of other topwaters, those legs really expand, right? They start just, flowing out. I still got the keeper guards on these, but those legs just start flowing out. And it looks alive even when you're not moving it. So you can leave it in place. Spawning fish, post-spawn fish will blast it. And a lot of times in the month of May too, you're dealing with vegetation, it's growing, and fishes around that stuff really good. So number 2 for the month of May is a frog. By the way, I keep it really simple, guys, with my frog fishing. I basically have 3 colored frogs. I got 2 in my hand right now. I fish something with a white belly, I fish something with a black belly, and I like something that looks more like a bluegill. Has a little orange in the throat, orange in the belly, and that's it. White and black, number 1 and number 2 colors of all time for me with the frog. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to number 3. Now we're gonna switch to my top 2 baits in the month of May down south. Let's say the Carolinas south. You heard him mention it, but as you get geographically further away from Virginia, that water's hot, that water's heating up. It's more of that post-spawn, early summer bite. And think about the mood of the fish in the month of May. They've spawned and they're tired. And now they have to go to their summer places. They got to travel all that distance. They need a big meal. They need to recoup, but they also need an easy meal. So because of that, I'm going to give you 2 of my all-time favorite baits for the month of May. Again, a little more general, but let me start with a topwater in the month of May. When you mention topwater, listen, if you mention topwater, 2 things come to mind. The post-spawn feeding of an easy meal, and that's what we're talking about today, and fall fishing, right? That's what comes to mind. But in May, you cannot beat a surface lure because it's an easy meal, right? It's a deliberate bait, and the fish are recovering from the spawn on the way to their summer patterns. Here's 2 of my favorites, without a doubt. a walking style bait. A lot of people call them spook style baits. This is the Berkley J-Walker. It's just got a very easy rhythmic side to side motion. I love this on the month of May, especially in places where I'm fishing undefined cover. Let me explain that, right? If I'm fishing a ledge, if I'm out in front of a spawning pocket and there's a drop off, but there's not a specific piece of cover. Not throwing at a log, I'm not throwing at a dock, I'm throwing at open water. Great time to throw the walking style, spook style bait. Secondary points, main points, gravel bar, places where there's no specific cover because it walks, it's got a knocker in it, it attracts them to it, right? It calls them up, and I'm covering water. Because I'm not throwing at one thing. I'm throwing at a point, or I'm throwing at a ledge, and I'm able to cover a lot of water. So month of May, down south, walking topwater bait, and you heard me say it with the frog, a popping style bait. And that's the main difference, right? Month of May, if I'm fishing specific cover, I'll put that down and I'll pick up the popper. Because if I'm fishing a lone dock on the way out of a spawning pocket, it's the last dock before you get to the main lake, right? Imagine that. Fish are done spawning, they're heading to the main lake, there's that one big long dock, guess where they're gonna be? Righto. When I'm fishing cover, docks, logs, a bush, a stump, I love that. Because instead of me covering water, I'm target fishing. And I can pop it, it spits, I can leave it in place. Just like the frog had the skirt, the popper has the tail, right? It's got this mylar flash tail that'll breathe. The other great thing about this popper in the month of May, if you're down south, now listen to me. Listen close. In a lot of places in the month of May, Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, you know, a lot of those places, the bluegill are spawning in May. Your bass are done, they're post-spawn, they're hungry, they're looking for an easy meal. And if there's bluegill beds in those areas that you're fishing, pop a bluegill colored popper around the beds. This is the Bullet Pop 70. This right here is a bluegill pattern. The one I've got, it's called Ghost Gill. Great color pattern. Get around those bluegill beds, and they look like clusters. If you've not seen them, you can see them with your eyes. You can see them on side imaging. You can see them on forward facing. They look like honeycombs. They look like literally like honeycombs because those bluegill spawn in clusters. Bed, 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 bed. There might be 8 of them, 10 of them, 20 of them in a little cluster, then nothing. Pop that around those beds in the month of May. They're looking for a big, easy meal. You're gonna catch a lot of females transitioning to the summer pattern, transitioning from the spawn. It's a great pattern. Number 4, the second one for south in the month of May, and this is great because I'm just going back to a bait I already mentioned, is that same lizard. This time I increased that size of the lizard a little bit. Instead of during the spawn, I wanted that 4 and 5 inch lizard. Now I'm going to those bigger ones. Now I'm going to the 6 inch lizard, 7, even 8 inch lizard, and I'm going to Carolina rig that lizard. Man, that's a term you haven't heard a lot about anymore. The old ball and chain. And, you know, Carolina rig, look in my video archive, we've got a couple great videos on it, is basically a weight, a bead, a barrel swivel, and then a leader. Anywhere from, call it 14 inches to 2 or 3 feet, and I just drag around the same exact places I'm throwing that walking bait in the month of May, right? Coming out of the spawning pockets, coming out of the protected coves, coming off of the shoals, and the humps, right? The places they spawn. I'm trying to find those first couple deep water breaks, those points, secondary points, main points. The first places those fish pull out from the spawn, grass lines. A lot of times the spawning coves are bare, but as you get toward that deeper water, you'll have an edge of grass, inside and outside edge of grass, those kind of places. And I'm just dragging a lizard. Really, really simple way to fish. One of the important things I want you to remember when you Texas rig that lizard on a Carolina rig, right? So I'm using that same hook. Literally, I'm using now I'm gonna go to a little bigger hook with the 6 and 7 inch, 8 inch lizard. Anywhere from a 3/0 to a 5/0 regular offset Berkley Fusion hook. I'm not biting the head off this time, so I'm not Texas rigging it. But mostly every lizard out there, even other brands, if you look at the Berkley, it's got a flat side. When you Texas rig it, make sure that flat side is down, right? So we're going to Texas rig it on that hook. And when we fish it on that Carolina rig, that flat side, as you pull that weight, that bait drags behind it, and then it kind of glides, right? It kind of sleds down, hits the bottom. You pull it again, it lifts, flat bottom, it rises. You pull it, you stop, it glides back down. So that flat side really acts as a mechanism to help it glide a little, okay? Slow, just feel around, non-specific cover, right? You're on the ends of those points, you're on a ledge or river, first river ledge outside the spawning pocket, drag it around. Use it in conjunction with that walking bait. And it's a great May bait in the southern states. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one, talking about my top 4 baits for the month of May. Give them a try. It's a great month to catch some big bass. Even if they're post-spawn down south, you catch some really big post-spawn females trying to recover from the spawn. Give them a try. You're going to catch a lot of fish. I hope you like these videos. Listen, if you like what you're hearing, stop right now. Stop in your tracks. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to my channel. If you're already a subscriber, tell your friends, tell your buddies about this channel. Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to help you and give you some tips. So try those 4 baits in the month of May, and you're going to catch some bass. Bye. Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out in the shop. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, you have to check out that one, and I hope you like them.